Hello and welcome. I am Jack O'Brien, the executive editor of MM+M, and this is the MM+M Agency 100 video series. I'm pleased to be joined today by two special guests. We have Jeanne Martel, the founder and CEO of the Woven Health Collective. We have James Lewis, the Chief Growth and Strategy Officer of the Woven Health Collective. Jeanne and James, thank you so much for joining us.
Jack, thanks for having us. It's so nice to be here in person.
I love being able to do this in studio. You've come to our offices here in Chelsea, so what more could we ask for? And it's going to be a wonderful conversation. Of all the agencies that we have on the list, I really have a shine for the Woven Health Collective. Obviously, know your story going back over a decade now in terms of starting off as Clinical Mind, all the different adaptations and changes that you've made as an agency. And I kind of want to start the conversation there, if you don't mind. Take us back 14 years ago to when the agency began in terms of what was the impetus, what was the focus, and then we can kind of go along the chronology.
Yeah, that's the easy part for me, is thinking back on just how I felt in those early days and what I was trying to achieve. So we just had our 14th anniversary in April. And I do always try to take a little bit of time on that anniversary to just sort of reflect on where we've come from, how far we've gotten. But really, I think at that point in my career, the industry was, it was pretty brutal. People were, being chewed up and spit out pretty much left and right. And I'm not saying it's an easy place to work now. I mean, we all deal with the roller coaster and the stress of this business, but it was particularly hard on women, I think. I really knew so many colleagues and women that I worked with that left the industry or left to go have kids and were like, there's no way I can come back and do this job. And so I think I was struggling in a very similar place myself. I had had my second child. I was really at an organization where there just wasn't really a whole lot of flexibility to sort of make that work for my life. And I think there was a problem with culture, in a lot of the agencies. It wasn't like I could have made a decision to go somewhere else because I didn't really feel like it was going to be any better elsewhere. So I think the big decision for me was, do I go do something else or do I try to create something, that will work for me? And if it works for me, then it will work for lots of other people too. And I think we did that. We created something that wasn't just about culture. It was also about great work, bringing technology, having a really strong scientific foundation, doing all the things that we wanted to do to provide that quality and that create that trust with clients. But at the same time, be able to create an agency where people had a little bit of flexibility and they could, kind of deal with the stress of working in this industry.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that science angle too, because not for nothing, I hear from a lot of agencies oh yeah, we have a great culture and we're a big family and everything, but I think the science aspect really does separate you from others on the list. James, I want to ask you about your involvement with what was then a Clinical Mind, now is Woven Health Collective. How did you come into the fold?
Yeah, absolutely. I came in through the acquisition of my company, 1110 Innovation Partners. And frankly, we didn't even know we were a synergy to the pharma marketing and the medical communications industry. But we were looking to find a partner that could help us grow. And our company was very passionate about healthcare innovation. We were very passionate about our people and building a culture where if we served our people well, they would serve our clients well and they would do right by the clients. And I met Jeanne in October of 2024, and they were very intentional about what they were trying to build. And it's not just about the culture and the people, which was the foundation of it all, but it was also about serving our clients better along the product lifecycle. And so what really stuck out to me is just the intentionality at the culture, the intentionality at the client service. So we joined the organization in April 2024, and it's been, it doesn't even feel like a partnership. It feels like we've been there for much longer than 2 years. We run the strategy consulting group. We've become the strategy consulting group, and it's really integrated throughout the company. And something we're going to talk a lot about today is that there's not really silos in the organization. We all kind of operate together. So our team has been embraced by the organization, embraced by the clients, and it feels like we've woven together. It's one big collective, and that's part of the story of our name.
And that's not just a pun too. It
right.
really is everything that goes into it. And like you said, we will get to the intentionality, but let's go back to the science for a little bit there, because I think every agency, when I look at those on the list, has their value prop, has their differentiator, and obviously science is something that has driven your organization for more than a decade now. Talk a little bit about that and having that kind of robust operation there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with probably like our roots as an organization and being in very high science specialty pharma areas. And that's just sort of, and from there branching out into rare disease and gene therapy and all of those things. So I think for us, you know, when we first started the organization, we were very much focused in hepatitis C and HIV and these really, you know, big, you know, disease areas that we really needed to have really strong scientific expertise. And then that just continued. And so for us, we just wanted the best scientists we could find, the best people in the industry. And that was actually one of the things that really geared us towards being a virtual company way before COVID happened, because we really focused on talent over geography from a very early stage. And we knew that that group was going to differentiate us and separate us in the market. And it was an investment. I mean, it was a huge investment. Even today, out of our roughly 400 employees, you know, close to 70 of them have PhDs, PharmDs, or MDs. That is a very large powerhouse of a scientific team that we're really proud of. But it is something that clients notice. It's something that they definitely understand the depth and breadth that that team brings to the table, not just from a scientific perspective, but a strategic perspective as well. So it's been a really good separator for us.
No, I can imagine. I can only speak anecdotally. Whenever I'm talking with somebody and they have MD or PhD at the end of their name, I tend to perk up a little bit more. It's interesting to hear that clients, again, if they're looking at the different agencies that are trying to pitch them on business and stuff, if they're like, oh, this one really comes from that really strong clinical scientific background, it may make them more inclined to give you that business, if not expand more of the business they already have with you.
Yeah, and it's not to say that a lot of other agencies don't have scientific, but I think they use a lot of freelance support. I think they don't necessarily have all those people as full-time employees. I think they kind of come in and out of accounts to provide support when it's needed. I think what's different about our team is they really are dedicated and embedded into these accounts. I mean, we have some scientific folks. We have some clients that have been with us for 14 years, 10 years, 12 years, and they have the same scientists on their business that were on their business back then. So we have a huge retention rate at the company too. So oftentimes when clients are rolling over and moving from role to role, it's our team, both scientific and accounts, that is sort of helping, you know, the incoming clients, you know, really understand the history and get up to speed. So it's definitely been something that has put us in a position to be able to really support our clients over the long term.
And James, how does that factor in kind of the growth strategy?
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I mean, we right now about 50% of R&D spend is on biologics, greater than 50%, and about 50% of all drugs in pipeline are rare or orphan disease drugs. So sometimes activating those drugs in the market and getting that engagement is highlighting the scientific differentiation and understanding those products and how they differ from other products in the market. So it's not out of the ordinary for us to be in a room with our clients, with our chief scientific officer, with our chief creative officer, with the strategy team, basically storming through how we position science in the market. And our clients see that, they respect that, they understand that, and it gives us a credibility as we're translating their innovations into the commercial market. And that's really where we put that to work and where we've been able to kind of support our clients all the way up the product life cycle.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, that kind of speed running the scientific aspects there, which is always kind of, like you said, the differentiator. I want to go back to something that you brought up in terms of like being virtual even before COVID, which I hear that from some organizations having, you know, I was in the office up until COVID, and then there was that weird virtual period. Like, I can't even imagine what that was like. Talk a little bit about the structure of the agency and how that's evolved and adapted over the years.
So we weren't 100% virtual, but from the very first day I started the agency, it was me and 3 other women that started the company, and we really aligned on, you know, how were we going to make this work? What was the culture that we wanted? What was the whole idea of the structure that we wanted in the organization, in addition to the things that we already talked about that we really wanted to make sure that we had from the get-go. But part of that was this idea of flexibility, that we were going to work our butts off, right? But we wanted to be able to do that within a flexible structure. And so we basically told everyone in the company that they could choose 2 days of the week to work at home. Other 3 days would be in the office. And then as we grew very rapidly, we shifted that to be more of a virtual environment where people could come in and out of the office a couple of days a week. But like I said, the scientific folks we were hiring, even some account folks at that point, from all over the country. So that's really just kind of was out of necessity, I think, and just also to create the flexibility to just make it work for people.
And did that supercharge at all, like over COVID, where suddenly everyone's like looking for those virtual or at least hybrid options?
Yeah, I think what it did for us during COVID is we had already kind of figured out how to work that way. We were already working that way. And so for a lot of companies who were so office-based, it was like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? And how are we going to make sure people communicate and this, that we keep everything moving in the right direction? But I think we were pretty much already operating that way. So it didn't really affect us, all that much.
No, that's very interesting.
We were able to keep going.
I want to ask too is like, I think one of the most interesting things about Woven is over the past couple of years is being able to bring in, and that's how you got James here, is being able to bring in different organizations, being very mindful about your M&A strategy. One of them that stands out to me is Boundless. I think even before I really knew Clinical Mind, having done different things with MM+M, is I knew Boundless. And when you guys acquired them, I'm like, that makes so much sense in the world. But talk us through that deal and what that has been like over the past, it's 2 years now at this point, right? Or is it a year and a half?
About a year.
About a year?
Yeah.
That's how much time flies.
That's right.
But talk me through that deal, because it's very interesting.
But it feels like a lot longer.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
exactly.
that for us too, because they've really come in and just immediately sort of integrated into the organization. So the evolution to bringing Boundless in actually started well before that. And it kind of goes back to something that James said before about, the complex science and commercializing these products and just the importance of the scientific in this process. And we had always focused on we were a medcom company, let's be real, right? Like that was always our roots. That's what we were. And we always wanted to be a medcom company with amazing creative. Like we really focused on that because we also knew that a lot of medcom companies did not have great creative. And that was another area where we could have great science and great creative together. And that resulted in some clients that we were working with that we had really long-term relationships with noticing that and saying, our AOR agency, our advertising agency is really falling down in a lot of these areas, but you guys know our product so well, our science so well, you really understand what's underneath all this. And so it started with them giving us a lot of projects that were, I would say, around the edges, around the fringes, maybe not direct campaign work, but it eventually evolved into direct campaign work because we were doing such a good job at that. And I think there is this sense that maybe the science is a little less important in those agencies or in that work. And I really couldn't disagree anymore. I think science always has to lead. Science always has to be the foundation of what you're doing. And the creative, obviously comes in and is a, how do you relay that and portray that, to the audience, and what emotion are you trying to create, and what what behavior are you trying to change? But I think at the end of the day, that's how we kind of started realizing we really are capable of doing this work and we have something here. But the reality is we didn't have it at scale. We didn't have all the necessary roles that we needed to really be able to do that well in full transparency. And so we knew this was a great opportunity for us. And so we really proactively went out to try to find a partner that we could bring in so that we could scale that opportunity. We could really bring in some of those really key strategic roles that we needed to be able to do that work well and marry that team and integrate that team with our existing creative, but also with this incredible scientific team that we had that we could bring to bear on that business. And it's been really successful.
I appreciate all the details there and stuff too. And I want to ask James just from a growth and strategy perspective, because to your point, being able to see something that fits, that's one thing, but actually being able to incorporate it and make that work within the machine is a whole different thing for agencies. Yeah. I'm curious what that's been like on your end.
Yeah, I think Jeanne hit the nail on the head. We've always been good at client service, and we've always been good at working across silos in our organization. So really in the growth role, it's about going where our clients want to take us. So if our clients want to take us upstream and give us a chance to do creative for a launch, we were already going upstream. We were already doing that. We were already hitting home runs on that. We just didn't have the scale and the depth. And so what Boundless brought in was that scale, that depth, so we could serve our clients better. And they've actually just leveled up the organization in that realm so that we can compete for compelling opportunities. And so it's been a great partnership, but it's not just in that promotional marketing, in that agency lane. They had pockets of medical communication talent. They had pockets of strategy talent. So we didn't just level up in promotional marketing, but we actually, brought some of those other folks into our methodologies, into our other business units, and they've challenged us and they've helped us be better. And so we're super excited about the partnership. In many ways, we feel like we're just getting started there. There's so much opportunity that we haven't tapped into yet in that promotional space and bringing science and promotional together. So it's going to be a great rest of the year.
I wanted to just mention one other thing, and that is just how proud I am of this whole team at the level of integration. It's unusual. Like a lot of companies that do M&A, they acquire companies, but I still think they sort of sit over here. Maybe they integrate finance, they integrate HR, they integrate some of that back office stuff. And I think what's even more striking about Woven is that people like James and people that have come in as founders from these other organizations, including Boundless, choose to stay. That is pretty unusual over a period of time. All of our founders that we have brought into the agency through any mergers and acquisitions have chosen to stay in the organization long term. And they've been really great partners, and integrating isn't easy when you've run your own company and we're looking to really, fully bring you into the organization. So I don't know if that is, worth talking about today, but I really am really proud of that we've been able to. I think even some founders, and this isn't James, but other conversations I've had, I think sometimes you come in and you're like, well, I'm going to wait and see. Yeah. And I'll see if I want to stick around. And we've had, I've had some people come back to me and say, like, I really would, it's such a great company, smart people, we're doing great things. I'd really like to find a role to stay here. And it's worked out. So
no, I've seen
plenty
of agencies where that has not been the case. And I can tell you anecdotally, like I got lunch with Francesco when I was down at South by Southwest. And he was raving about being in that culture. And again, it's not that easy. Some people get very territorial, whatever. But I think that's just a microcosm of the larger thing you have going on here.
I'll jump in and add to that. Courtney Caprellian came in through the Sensified acquisition in our MedComs group. She's now the president of the organization. Francesco is instrumental in our promotional marketing and our growth team, and he's digging in all over the place. Part of what drives that is the purpose-built structure where we have creative, scientific, and digital as shared services and not as their own business unit. So when you are acquired into the organization, you're either integrated into a business unit, or in the case of Boundless, you're standing up a new business unit, but you immediately get the value of scientific, creative, and digital and the support of the organization on day one. And that's a little bit different from other organizations where they keep their groups intact and they kind of operate in silos. So because of that, speaking as a founder that came in through an acquisition, you feel immediately supported and you feel immediately able to serve your clients better, which gives you a level of confidence to go out in the market and really bring great thought leadership, great solutions. So I think that purpose-built structure is a big part of it.
And it's also allowed us to grow more, to be honest, because it creates more collaboration across the organization and more an ability for us to kind of talk with each other and see what each other's clients are in need of and what's happening across the organization a little bit more freely. And it's really just led to like bringing James's team into different accounts and, seeing all the things that we can do to solve problems, or issues for those clients, and just seeing the growth that has come out of that has been really great to watch. I mean, I think the other thing that I didn't mention earlier about the early intentional structure, I spent quite a bit of time like sort of meeting with people and talking to people that had come out of other agencies just about like, hey, what worked, what didn't work, what did you see that was, toxic or, really helped not just culture, but actual performance because of how you were set up to be successful. And admittedly, a lot of the people that I ended up having relationships with and talked to had come out of different network environments, but that whole idea of the silos being, and the level of competition among employees or groups within the same organization being something that really didn't suit the employees or the clients at the end of the day. And so I think all of those things kind of came into play when we thought about, okay, we're going to do our first acquisition. How do we do this right? How do we make sure we bring these people in, they come into the fold? We don't let those silos get created in the first place, because once they're there, they're very hard to break down. So that was also just really intentional, and like hearing from other people and understanding what they thought, worked and didn't work. Even, it's some of the boring stuff, but even down to like, how do you incentivize people and what do those things look like? Right. And they drive behavior, and there's certain behavior that you don't want to drive.
No, I mean, it might be the boring stuff, but again, you're trying to crowdsource your best practices because, again, if all you know is what you've ever seen, then you're going to be in line to repeat those. So it's interesting to hear you bring that up. I want to address the elephant in the room. You were talking about being able to service clients, what clients want. You can't have a conversation with leaders these days without talking about AI. Talk to me about how that is factored into either client expectations, or is it something where you guys are saying, we've done all this stuff and it could be interesting for your business? Like, what is that dynamic like?
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about it, to be honest. We've had a lot of really great conversations with clients, and we'll give you, some specifics about that in a minute. But I'll take us back to kind of the beginning of last year. And, we were dabbling and trying to, just like any other agency, especially an agency of our size that didn't have the same resources as some of the larger companies, figuring out like, well, what was our strategy going to be and how are we going to tackle this? And we very early on realize like this is a real opportunity. If we could, really, jump in here and figure out how this is going to work in our agency, we can really be ahead of the game. But one of the things we realized really early on is that while we were going through this immersion phase where we just wanted folks to use it and get used to it, and even if it was like they weren't doing any serious client work with it, we created this partnership with Perplexity. We had everybody just going in there and doing prompts, but at the same time, we really wanted to be able to measure and understand like what was working with AI and what wasn't going to work with AI, so we can make quick decisions. And if something wasn't working, move on. And if it was working, double down on it and figure out how we could continue to benefit from that. So we really paused and had this whole just sort of philosophy of we have to walk to run, because we need to first look at what are our current practices and what are our current processes, and how much time is it taking for us to do these parts of all of these projects that we deliver on. And once we did that and we got a ton of metrics in the business on the current state while we were doing immersion in AI, so that now this year, as we're really rolling out specific projects and processes, we can actually measure those very specifically and understand what the outcome is. And I'm really excited. I hope there's going to be some future conference we're going to be able to get up there and really talk about our outcomes.
The AI Deciphered Conference. Hey, Marcus, AI Deciphered Conference. If I can do a little plug. We'll talk about it,
because I think I go to a lot of these conferences and they're great and everybody's talking about the challenges and how they're dealing with clients and how they're grappling with it. But I don't hear a lot of people talking about like, what are the measurements? Like, how is it actually impacting your business? And I think we're going to be able to have a really good way to do that. So just to before I hand it over to James to wrap that up, the way we've really communicated about internally is this is not just an opportunity for us as an organization to increase value for the clients, to, be more efficient, but also to make sure that our quality can be even better. At the end of the day, it's also an opportunity for our employees, because no matter where they go or who they work for, at any point in the future, they're going to be expected to be able to work in an AI-enabled world. And so we take it as our responsibility to also upskill them. And that's how we're approaching it. And so we have a big proficiency level plan this year. Our goal is 100% of our employees are level 3 proficiency in AI by the end of this year. And we have a really strong training program that we're working through with them. But we're doing a lot more, which can also talk about.
There's so much going on. I mean, we think of it in kind of two buckets. One is transforming our operations and rethinking how we do things internally. And the other is transforming our solution and product mix. At the core, we believe our clients are still going to buy solutions. Like they still want to focus on getting innovations and getting their products out to the market. They want to innovate in drugs. They want to get them out to the market. We want to help them do that. AI is a tool to do that better. On the internal efficiency side, what Jeanne talked about is just the tip of the iceberg, right? So we are leveling up everyone in the organization. Everyone has had access to a secure enterprise instance of Perplexity for over a year. So they know how to use it. They're comfortable with using it. We have an intentional training program to get people up to high proficiency. And then we have a select group of champions in the organization that are going to go beyond that level 3 proficiency to level 5. And they're actually picking capstone projects by domain. So that could be, transforming how we do literature analysis and scientific using AI. It could be launching a new process for advisory boards for AI. So we just have a ton of projects. I think we have 30 capstone projects actively going on right now that we're measuring the impact and quality and efficiency and how we can serve our clients better. On the product side, we're already launching products and solutions into the market that are not necessarily different from what we do today. They're just enhanced. So an example of that, as I just mentioned, is that using AI for advisory boards. So we have some clients where we're doing, over the course of several years, nearly 100 advisory boards in various different domains. We have a platform where we can look at longitudinal insights from those advisory boards and start to analyze what we're hearing, patterns in what we're hearing, and just change the user experience on how they engage in those ad boards. There's another topic. We've always done websites and search engine optimization. We've now enhanced the way we do that with generative engine optimization. So traditionally, it was about keywords and showing up in search engines. Now we're transforming the way we think about serving our clients so that they're showing up in AI results better. And so we just have a myriad of things that we're doing. I've been so impressed with the organization. Everybody is hungry for this knowledge. Everybody wants to engage. And our clients are looking to us to see where the future is going and how we're going to partner with them on AI.
No, it's fascinating to hear you talk about that. And again, it's in line with what I've heard from other agencies, but be able to point to those examples. And again, we can follow up offline about different opportunities with our coverage, because I think it would only benefit our readers. But to kind of round out the conversation, you talked about it there in your final sentence about the future. And we've started from the beginning of when you were Clinical Mind all the way to now where you are as Woven Health Collective. If we have this conversation in a year's time and we're celebrating the 2027 MM+M Agency 100. Talk to me about where you see the agency. What does the future look like in terms of goals, obstacles, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Well, I think we've accomplished so much in these first 14 years that we will probably just be looking at any remaining gaps that we have along that commercialization life cycle and some areas that we want to continue to scale as we go forward. I think we are just really optimistic about our opportunity to grow, continue to grow this agency and think about, what we want to build internally versus what, other, potential acquisitions we want to do in the future. I think we'll continue to have investment to do that. But big picture, when I look forward and think about, what's going to help us be successful, it's going to be the things that have already helped us be successful. We talk a lot about AI. It's like, been what everybody's talked about the last couple of years. I think in 3 or 4 years, it's just going to be ingrained into the agency. It's just going to be another way that people are working. It's not going to necessarily be, the buzzy topic that it necessarily is right now. There'll be some other new buzzword or thing that we're all talking about. But I think for us, it's going to come down to the things that have always made us successful. The trust that we've built with our clients, our ability to be responsive and be proactive, our ability to be nimble. I think that's one of the things that clients say the most is that when they talk to us, we really listen and we actually take action. And I've been really surprised. Sometimes clients will call me and they're like, "We can't believe you addressed that so quickly." And I'm shocked. Like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "No, you don't understand. Like, a lot of people don't actually listen." And take action. And it's sort of just moving, a bunch of chairs around on the deck. And so I think like we really do try to make sure that we are responding to clients and what their needs are and building that trust. And I think that's going to continue to be how clients view us and what's going to help us be successful.
Yeah, I have a story. A client came to us probably 6 months ago and said, with all this AI, I mean, how are we expected just to take our data and upload it on a third-party site and just trust that they're doing the right thing with it? I looked back at him and I said, can you give me an example where you're not uploading your data to a third-party provider? It's in Outlook, it's on the cloud, it's on all these different places. And so to Jeanne's point, we think AI is just going to be integrated into business and how we do business in the future. And so our future is just more of the same. Innovation is in Woven's DNA. When digital platforms were the thing to do, we incubated digital platforms to enhance our services, to enhance our products. And we armed our team to go out and use those with our clients to better serve our clients. It's exactly what we're doing with AI. So we really go back to the basics of client service, people first mentality, and giving our people the tools they need to succeed. And we just pay very close attention to the signals in the industry to make sure we're serving those clients better. Another point in that I'll leave on is with AI and drug discovery, molecules and the science are getting more complex. And we're better suited than anyone in the industry to understand that complexity and translate it into the market to make sure we're getting engagement where we need to get engagement.
Yeah, like you said, that scientific rigor in a world that's just going to become that much more complicated is only going to help to differentiate you for other clients that are out there looking for that specificity. So
we agree.
I really appreciate the time. Like I think of all the agencies that we cover on, a daily, weekly basis, and being able to review that in Agency 100, I find your case one of the most intriguing. And I really appreciate you coming in the office to be able to talk to our audience about all that's going on.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it so much.
Thank you. You're our favorite facilitator. So we appreciate.
What a way to finish out.
That's the way that put that on the tape.
Well, thank you again for this episode of the MM+M Agency 100 video series. I've been Executive Editor Jack O'Brien, Jeanne Martel, James Lewis, and the fine folks at Woven Health Collective. Thank you again.